Cardinal Michael Czerny, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We're speaking with you here midday Saturday in Rome before voting has taken place. It's a giant task at hand, voting paragraph by paragraph. More than 1,000 amendments have been proposed. Can you speak about what has the work looked like this past day? I understand people were working overnight to incorporate all these amendments.
Well, I'm very fortunate not to have been part of that task force, so I can't tell you how they've been working. I had responsibilities at the Synod on the Amazon, so I know what it's like, and I can only be grateful to the people who are doing it.
One of the topics that's come up, especially in the last week, related to authority and church governance, and at a press briefing, you were asked about whether there was a chance of separating church governance from orders, and you said that there is no danger to the church. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I'm glad to. So there are positions in the church which require ordination, and there are positions in the church where it has become traditional for ordained people to have that position. But in the latter case, these traditions are not based on a real requirement. So if in the latter case, for example, the secretary of the Dicastery, of which I'm a prefect, the secretary is a sister, an excellent sister, I might add, and so she is secretary without being ordained. This would have been unthinkable a few years ago, but in fact it happened, and there's been no legislative or canonical change required to make that possible.
So coming out of the Synod, what are you seeing will be proposed or discussed relating to church structure?
I think what we're going to, what we will discover is not what you might say a new idea, but we will learn to live within those structures, or to move with those structures, or maybe even best to say that those structures will move with us in a synodal fashion, and that this will allow those structures, which is a kind of a stiff or inflexible word, it will allow those structures to be more supple and to be able to fulfill their purpose better.
Mm-hmm.
You are seen as someone who is close to Pope Francis. Can you speak to what the Holy Father was hoping to accomplish for this synod? What was his vision for the Synod on Synodality?
Well, he made it very clear before he even convoked this synod that he believed that synodality was the characteristic and indeed the challenge for the Church in this millennium. So I think that's a pretty high hope, and I admire him enormously for having the courage to get going on it. Not to say, well, let's think about it for a couple of centuries and then try it out. No, let's begin right away.
At the Amazonian Synod, I know you were a major figure at that event. A number of recommendations were put forward in the final document relating, for example, to the ordination of the viri probati. They were given to Pope Francis, and he chose not to do anything with those recommendations and wrote his apostolic exhortation accordingly. Can you talk about the dynamic of the relationship between a synod and the Pope to whom they present the final report?
Yeah. But I have to correct what you said. The Holy Father didn't take up or, in that sense, implement any of the propositions of the Amazon Synod. He gave the whole final document to the Amazon and to the whole world.
Yes.
So in a sense, he passed the fruits of the Synod to the whole Church as fruits of the Synod. This has not been done before, but it was I think a creative and fruitful way of sharing what the Synod had experienced and shared without anticipating or jumping the gun on decisions that weren't mature to be taken.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's what he said in explaining his attitude towards the end of the Synod. He said, these questions are not mature. And experience bears him out.
Yes, but the dynamic of a Holy Father receiving the work of a synod, this is a consultative body. Could you talk a little bit about that relationship?
Well, that's how the synod is conceived and meant.
Yes.
The synod is not a council. The synod is a synod.
Yes.
And every synod has been consultative to the Holy Father, and the Holy Father has made what use he thought best of the fruits of the synod.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, there's only one synod whose document became magisterium immediately, and that was the Synod on the Justice in the World.
Last year, you celebrated Mass at Auschwitz on the 80th anniversary of St. Edith Stein's death. You spoke movingly about your family's Jewish roots. Your Eminence, can you share your reactions to these global expressions of anti-Semitism that we have seen these past few weeks?
Well, I think, I don't know what I can say. I mean, I'm horrified by what has happened. I'm very sad. I mean, my greatest sadness is that the greatest sadness is that the communities or nations or states surrounding Israel and Palestine and interested in Israel and Palestine haven't managed to help the two peoples to come to the two-state solution that everybody agrees is a solution. For me, I mourn those who have died, and I lament the terrible destruction. For me, the real scandal is how is it possible that so many powerful and influential and rich nations have not been able to help these two small peoples to live together? I think that that's the saddest condemnation you can make, and I'm afraid that's what really scandalizes me.
Your pictorial cross is very famous internationally.
Yeah.
It is, I'll let you say what it's from, but it also ties to your own personal coat of arms, which has a refugee boat.
That's right.
The issue of migration, I know, has come up at this synod. What do you see are some of the potential fruits coming out of this on such an important issue for both you and especially the Holy Father?
Well, as you've probably been told by other interviewees, this synod is not about issues.
Yes.
So the fact that migration was mentioned doesn't mean that migration was itself discussed, or that the issue is somehow being shaped in one way or another.
Right.
All the issues discussed at the synod were by way of example of how one deals with issues. So hopefully people have are more aware of the challenge and will be more sensitive to the issues in their respective home countries. But you can say that about every issue that was raised.
Right. And your own work in this area, and your pictorial cross in particular, I think embodies some of that, doesn't it?
Well, it embodies the commitment of the Church to follow the teaching of Jesus, which is very clear about the very privileged status, right from our first beginnings as people, as the children of Abraham, our fundamental commitment or obligation to the stranger. That's one of the most basic truths of our faith, which we share with the Jewish people we were talking about also. And so we need to keep on deepening it, and we need to help our governments to take a truly human, truly civilized, a true human rights, and a truly inclusive policy, because that's in our heart of hearts, that's what we want. And if we're being manipulated to be xenophobic, well then it's manipulation, it should stop. But the people who are coming to us need to come, and when they come, they enrich our lives, they enrich our church, and they are very, very welcome. And if, like my family, one is forced to flee, the most important thing is to have somewhere to flee to. And if there's no place to flee to, then you're really stuck.
Yeah.
Finally, looking ahead, what lies between this October and next October?
Well, I'll give you a sad answer perhaps for a journalist, but a very happy answer for us. More of the same. But what we're going to come out of this synod with is not new novelty, but depth. Not novelty, but breadth. We need to find good ways for more people to participate, and for a wider variety of people, especially those on the margins of the church or those who feel excluded, but also those within the church who have, in a sense, inherited a kind of passive Catholicism, which means that you appreciate what the church gives, but you don't feel that there's anything that you have to give or need to give. We need to grow as a church, living out our baptismal, and I think one of the things I learned at the Synod is that you always should say baptismal dignity and responsibility. It's not just a dignity that you enjoy, it's also responsibility that you have. We're all dignified by our baptism, and we're all rendered responsible to help carry out the mission of Jesus Christ. And I hope that during this coming year, we're going to discover that over and over again, more deeply, more broadly, and with greater joy. And we're going to have a wonderful second session.
Yeah.
Cardinal Michael Czerny, thank you for your time, especially on this busy day as the Synod winds to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.